She fed a homeless kid with her last tip. He came back. Years later. Owning the restaurant Rosie's Nook, a deteriorating jazz-era cafe that was clinging to life in a neglected part of the city, was under attack from the rain, which pounded against the fogged windows. Ella Maynard found herself inside, wiping down the cracked Formica countertops as her feet screamed in the worn-out waitress shoes she was wearing. When she was 58 years old, she was a phantom of her former self. She had been a jazz pianist who had previously shown great promise, but her aspirations had been dashed by arthritis and past due payments. Tonight, her last tip, which was a folded $5 note, was found in her apron. Rent was due the next day. After then, he made his appearance. The face of a little child, who was no more than 12 years old, was pushed against the glass, and his tattered clothing was wet through. Ella let out a stifled breath. His hunger was like fire that emanated from him. She opened the door before she had a chance to reflect on her decision. "Come in, sweet honey. You are destined to meet your end." His eyes were fixed on the steam that was rising from the coffee pot, and he did not open his mouth. There were three things that Ella observed about him: his eyes, which were wide and golden in color, the way he held something little and metallic in his pocket, and the slight odor of ozone which was similar to the air that is present before a storm. Her last $5 was slipped over the counter and given to the chef. "Joe, please have some hot chocolate and extra candies, and my sandwich made with the remaining meatloaf." Joe didn't raise his eyebrows, but he did comply. Amidst the boy's voracious eating, Ella caught a glimpse of him sneaking a peek at the diner's vintage Wurlitzer jukebox, which was dusty and had not been played for years. The question was posed in a low voice. "Like music?" Taking a little silver music box out of his pocket, he nodded his head in agreement. Its song was a sound that was eerie and foreign to me. It was like wind chimes played in a low key. He hushed, "Mamas," as he spoke. "Only thing I got left." Ella slid the last $5 into his coat as soon as he finished. She said, "For bus fare somewhere safe," and we agreed. There was a moment of hesitation before he handed the music box to her. "Just for you. It able to find its way back?" To prevent her from being able to disagree, he disappeared into the downpour. Not a single thing changed. 6 months later, Rosie's Nook was finally shut down. The music box was Ella's only source of solace as she found herself drifting around nursing homes and laundromats. The peculiar tune was able to alleviate headaches and calm panic episodes in a manner that was almost miraculous. She would hum it as she was cleaning the toilets, and she would worry about the boy. After a number of decades had passed, on a Tuesday, a sleek black automobile pulled up in front of the abandoned cafe. In order to document the Save Our History petition, Ella, who was now gray and relying on a cane, was snapping photographs. Amber gold eyes, a fitted suit, and a confident walk were exuding from the guy who emerged. "Miss Ella?" His voice was trembling. "It was a wet night when you delivered your last gratuity to a young man, in addition to this." When he opened his hand, he found her $5 note sealed in resin. He went under the name of Leo Vance. He was able to subsist in shelters, teach himself how to code by using the computers at the library, and start Aura Tech, a firm that is transforming the field of renewable energy. "That night, you didn't just feed me," he remarked with conviction. "You showed me kindness was a currency that never depletes." The deteriorating Rosie's Nook was not the only thing that Leo had purchased. He had also located Ella's long-lost piano recordings from jazz clubs in the 1970s. He was able to repair them by using AI. While he was giving her the keys, he smiled and said, "This place is no longer just a restaurant. This is Ella's sanctuary, a music school for children who are in foster care. You are the director of the creative department." Ella let out a gasp as they entered the new restaurant, which was now entirely made of warm wood and stained glass. On top of the brand-new grand piano, her music box was shining brightly. It was injured by Leo. Her old piece, Rosie's Rain, was being played by a live jazz trio when the eerie melody began to blend in with it. Ella murmured, "You said it finds its way back," as she echoed him. Leo flashed a grin. "Evidently Mama was a quantum scientist," the speaker said. "In order to attract futures where kindness wins, she worked on building it. In order to create Auratech's clean energy grids, he had used her calculations." For the first time in 30 years, Ella performed the piano on that particular evening. Harmony was created by the music box, with its chimes resonating like the stars as they surrounded youngsters who were giggling over milkshakes. Rain was falling outside, yet it seemed like a godsend at this moment. The celebration of Ella's sanctuary's big reopening was more than simply a party. It was a true baptism. Rainbows appeared on the polished flooring as a result of light that was refracted through the newly installed stained glass windows, which depicted jazz notes combined with quantum waves. There were youngsters in foster care who were holding donated instruments or tracing piano keys with respectful fingers. Some of them were cautious, while others were bursting with enthusiasm. Taking the stage was Ella, with Leo standing next to her. Her hands were lifted, but not to play. Rather, she was speaking. "Music isn't about perfection, darlings," she said, with a voice that had become harsh with the passage of time, yet was as clear as a bell. "The issue is the truth. The pain in your rib cage and the hope in your throat are both things that you allow to sing. Indeed, it is your superpower." Next, she gave Leo a little nod. The grand piano was the location where he put the silver music box. Something unusual took place on the moment when its eerie chimes started playing. Ben's, a quiet 10-year-old off-key trumpet, a clarinet that was slightly deformed, and a donated violin that was missing a string were among the children's instruments that began to tune themselves. Although it is not flawless, it is harmonic. As the dissonant sounds became more mellow, they began to weave themselves into the melody of the music box, much like threads finding their home in a tapestry. Ella let out a gasp. "Mama referred to it as resonant entanglement," Leo murmured after her mother. "A compassionate attitude generates sympathetic vibes." Maya, a 12-year-old girl with acute eyes and a veteran of the foster care system, observed something that was peculiar. Her fingers were already dancing over the piano keys. Tiny, shimmering notes, which were apparent as light, flared from the music box and swirled around her hands whenever she played a phrase that Ella had given her. The phrase was a piece of Rosie's Rain. He had learned it from Ella. In a gasp, she said, "It's helping me." Leo flashed a grin. "It recalls every act of kindness that it has experienced. Yours is being amplified by it." The entrance to the cafe opened with a creaking sound in the middle of a joyous and impromptu jam session. As he stumbled in, an older guy wearing a moth-eaten jacket walked in, giving off the scent of snow and old regrets. He stopped moving and stared at Ella. The recognition was followed by the humiliation. "It's Frank, Mr. Ella's former spouse. Over 40 years ago, the trumpet player who had pawned her piano to pay off gambling debts vanished on the same night that Rosie's Nook shuttered its doors." A hush descended. The suspense was felt by the children. While Leo took a cautious step forward, Ella reached out and touched his arm. She looked at Frank with eyes that were aged yet unbreakable. "Long time, Frank." He made a rasping sound. Listened to the song. Seemed to be the old house lighted up. Didn't think it was you to begin with. With a feeble motion, he pointed to the flourishing sanctuary. "You built all this?" "Kindness was the strength that built it," Ella whispered. "This is Leo," she indicated. "Do you remember the little guy who I fed with my most recent tip? Which one of them did you refer to as a street rat distracting me?" Frank's face became pallid. He looked at Leo, who was strong and adored, and then he looked at the youngsters who were producing music that was faulty but lovely. His shoulders sagged in place. "I came to say that, Ella, I am really sorry. It's too late, I'm told." Ella said nothing at all. Instead, she made her way to the piano, wound the music box, and carefully put it on the bench next to Frank, who was sitting there. This was not the typical eerie tune that Ella and Frank would play together. Rather, it was a gentle and forgiving performance of Autumn Leaves, which was the very first song that they ever performed together. Frank shook severely. He had filth on his face and tears pierced through the muck. Reluctantly, he reached into a donation box and took out a harp that had been abandoned. It was a single wavering note that he blew. The brightness of the music box increased. As the note became more stable, it became warmer, and it began to weave itself into the overall sound of the sanctuary. After that, he left. Nevertheless, Maya gave the harp to him as he was leaving. "Practice," she remarked in a word that was direct but not cruel. "Come back next Tuesday." At a later time, Leo presented Ella with plans as the neon light of the restaurant sign was being restored. Harmonic Grids is the latest effort undertaken by Aura Tech. In areas that are experiencing difficulties, we are putting miniature resonators that are modeled like music boxes. He touched a schematic, which was a little silver gadget that was buzzing with sound waves that had been collected. They take in ambient stress, such as the noise from traffic, fights, and despair, and transform it into harmonic energy that is completely safe, to be made available as. The prototype of the gadget that was sitting on the table made a faint chiming sound. In the backyard, a group of adolescents who were squabbling halted. Their irate yells became more subdued, and eventually they collapsed into astonished laughter. "Peace," Ella said, filled with amazement. "Your mother's equations, amplifying kindness on a city scale." After a number of years, Ella's sanctuary flourished. Maya, who is now a Grammy-winning composer, provided funding for music initiatives all around the country. Ben went on to become a music therapist after he became a quiet trumpet player. And every Tuesday, Frank would teach newbies how to play the harmonica. His hands were firm, and his eyes were clear. During the anniversary of that rainy night, Ella discovered a new exhibit that was framed and placed next to the $5 note that was encased in resin. It was able to... a stub from a bus ticket that had the date Shelter written on it and was dated back to that wet night many decades ago. A harmonica that has been honed and cherished. There is a photograph of little Leo, Ella, and Frank, all of whom are smiling hesitantly after the first performance at the sanctuary. An inscription written by Leo can be seen underneath it. It reads, "Kindness is the only investment that never fails. It reverberates. There is a tangle. It reconstructs whole universes. I am grateful to you, Miss Ella, for your pennies, the purchase of a future for us." That evening, while Ella played Rosie's Rain, the music box began to sparkle like it had been filled with collected stars. There was a little rain falling outside. It was not a storm, but rather a gift that washed the city clean, one note at a time.